Our story continues at the Epstein country home south of Warsaw in the village of Otwock along the river Swider. First, a bit of the backstory. Vered had a secret life that only her father knew. Since her mother died, she was involved in the Polish resistance or underground, serving as a courier for the Jewish partisans. Eli was unaware of this, but it was no accident that he was chosen to speak at the Epsteins that Hanukkah night. Vered and Eli come together in the underground on a frigid wintry afternoon. Eli is wounded in a gun battle with an SS officer whom Eli kills after finding him brutally beating a Polish peasant woman in front of her children. As the story develops, we learn that the SS officer was the secret lover of the peasant woman. With the help of the SS, she hunts down Eli until she finds him in his forest hideout. Eli, startled, looks up into the muzzle of her gun. How did she get in here? Where were the sentries? And Vered? Put your hands where I can see them, she calmly ordered. This woman was obviously well trained by the Germans. Vered was out and soon due back, but the peasant woman takes aim, snarling at Eli. You Jew bastard! You killed my man! Eli recognizes her and incredulously starts to say, but she cuts him off before he can continue. Oh, what do you Jews know? What with your holy books? Sure, he hurt me, but so did my drunken, good-for-nothing Polak husband. But Stoltz, he knew how to make love. Eli saw the woman's finger curled hard around the trigger. Vered! But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's return to the beginning, where we find Eli wounded after the incident at the peasant farmhouse. Vered finds Eli in the woods on the outskirts of Prada. She rescues him from his hiding place, a snow cave. As winter gives way to spring, to aid in his recovery and to further their relationship, Vered takes Eli to the family country estate, named for the lake in northern Palestine, Kinneret, reflecting the family's longtime Zionist leanings. Vered takes Eli on a tour of the home, which had been in the family since their grandfather bought this 17th century hunting lodge with glorious views of the river. The grounds including breathtaking Italianate gardens, pools, and fountains. The entire estate, including an 18th century farmhouse, speaks volumes for the degree of wealth and assimilation of the Polish Jewish upper class. Jewish culture, however, was not totally lost, because alongside the swimming pool was the family mikveh, which Eli and Vered would put to good use. But for that, you'll have to read the novel. The tour complete, let's continue with Vered and Eli. Vered casually threw her coat on the rack by the door, and was about to make her way to the piano when Eli takes hold of her waist, partly to hold his balance, mostly to share his passion of this moment with her. Let's have dessert first. Dinner and everything else can wait, he said in almost a whisper. Not yet, my dear, I have plans, was her retort. Come with me to the piano, and then we'll see. I could barely contain myself as I followed Vered to sit on the bench next to her at the piano. She shrugged off my little hug, stretched out her arms, flexing her fingers, and as she laid them on the keys, she said she had a present for me, a new piece she had been practicing for just this moment. I'd have to guess what it was. As her fingers hit the keys, the puzzled look on my face gave way to a big smile of recognition. Edvard Grieg's Piano Concerto in A minor. My God, did I love this girl. As Vered's fingers moved through the opening musical phrases, I could almost see Edvard Grieg in his Bergen, Norwegian home, pulling the sounds from his studio piano, bringing them in from the sea below his window. I could imagine the sound of the waves rolling up against his rocky shore, the notes cascading colorfully across the scale. Her hands hang but a moment above the keys. She wrings from each one a new clarity of sound. Once again the music calls out the image of Norway, of the flowing waters cascading back to the sea. There is a power to Grieg's piano concerto that Vered captured in the poetry of her playing, the movement of her arms, shoulders, the heaving of her breast, the way her head played lead for her hands and fingers. I could not take my eyes off her. For a moment she picked up her head, and our eyes meet before her hands return to the music. Silently, I got up from the bench and moved over to the couch where I could rest the ache of my wound and the longing of my heart. I sat transfixed, those olive green eyes that would take your breath away, eyes that could stare down the most defiant of men, and eyes that could penetrate and warm the coldest of hearts. The flash of her green eyes, surrounded by her flowing, lush red hair, made you feel that no request was too much. The music flowed out of Vered, with an intensity coming from an inner wellspring. It was a cry of something she had pent up for far too long. Thank God for her music was all that I could think. Baruch lay down beside me. Running my hands through his coat gave us both a much-needed sense of relief. The music ends, with the last refrain echoing through the great room. Vered sat on the couch beside me. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. In Vered's hand was a picture that a moment ago was on the piano. She held it out for me to better see. I gently took it from her. It was a portrait of a woman looking much like Vered, only older, wiser, and beautiful in years. Vered's hand reached out, taking the portrait and hugging it to her body. My mama, tearful came the words. We were so close. She taught me to play this piece. It was her favorite. This is the first time I have played it since she died.